Hey, we did not expect to be going live just 25, 30 minutes after UCSS ended today, but in some breaking news in the last 5-6 minutes, the Cleveland Browns have hired Mike Vrabel as a consultant for the upcoming season. Now, this is something I don't think anyone saw coming. Mike Vrabel was in the running for head coaching positions with the Chargers, with the Falcons. He was even rumored to be interested in the Ohio State job. No one thought he'd come to Cleveland, of all places, as a consultant, but that is where the news has landed. Adam Schefter, I'm going to read this tweet just verbatim for you guys from Adam Schefter. The Browns are hiring former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel as a coaching and personnel consultant. Vrabel now returns to Ohio, where he was a standout linebacker at Ohio State. Earl the Pearl is going to come back. He was driving home. He's heading back in to talk about this. I'm going to read and go over the chat comments with you guys in a sec. This happened within the last 10 minutes, so it's a whirlwind of thoughts. Here are my initial thoughts. From a purely football perspective, it's a great move. You're adding a former coach of the year, a guy who's one of the toughest, hard-nosed, most creative defensive minds in all of football. That might be a little exaggeration on the defensive side. His teams always play tough as hell. I'm not sure if he was the architect of those defenses, but a hell of a head coach, a guy that people thought was going to get a head coaching job this cycle, and the fact that he didn't, he was considered the front runner to have his pick of the litter for jobs next season. Now, by becoming a consultant for the Browns, by no means means that he's out of the running for a head coaching position next year with other teams, but you thought he'd take a year off, kind of enjoy, sit back. So to add him to the staff with Kevin Stefanski, with Ken Dorsey, with Jim Schwartz, with all the other hires, Tommy Reese, Deuce Staley, Jaquez Cesar, you're putting together a hell of a staff here, top to bottom. So from that perspective, I love it. You add another head coaching mind to the table when the Browns are making decisions on game plans. And I know he's a personnel consultant, whatever. Once he's in the building, I'm sure they're going to ask him his opinion on certain situations. And as Schefter reported, as you can see, he's a coaching consultant as well. So why wouldn't you lean on a guy who's as successful, as smart, as respected as Vrabel when you're going over those kind of decisions? I love it from a football perspective. The more smart minds you have in that coaching room, it makes Kevin Stefanski's job a little bit easier. It makes Jim Schwartz's job a little bit easier. He has inherent knowledge of scouting and going against certain teams and coaches that now he brings to this staff that they may not have had before. So from a purely football perspective, I think it's an A-plus home run hire. I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, from a non-football perspective side, it could be a little awkward for Kevin Stefanski now. Hey, you're a two-time coach of the year, Kev. You just won it last year. You made the playoffs with 5 different quarterbacks, but you don't have an extension yet. And we could have given it to you a while ago. We haven't for one reason or another. Maybe it's coming. Maybe it's not. Who knows? But now we're going to bring in another guy who has a Coach of the Year trophy in his trophy case as a consultant. And I'm not saying it means anything. I'm not saying it pushes me to think in any type of direction. All I'm saying is you now have another guy that can make things complicated, another potential distraction for the Browns in 2024. From a football perspective, as Earl the Pearl walks into the studio, he'll join us in one sec. I love it. I think it's a brilliant home run hire. I think it could also lead to some distractions and some difficult conversations to have in the future if things don't go as well. We talked about part of the reasons we didn't think the Browns could bring back Joe Flacco was the Deshaun Watson factor and any potential fan, and not saying fans make these decisions, but any potential riff or schism in the room if Deshaun wasn't playing well. Well, the guys know, hey, Joe Flacco did this for us last year. I love Kevin Stefanski. I think he's a hell of a head coach. He just won Coach of the Year for a reason. In my opinion, he's a top 5 to 10 coach in the entire NFL. I also think Mike Vrabel is a top 5 to 10 NFL coach in the entire league too. So if things aren't going right, what's to say there aren't going to be part of the upper management and front office or part of the players or some fraction of the players? There'll certainly be some fraction of the fan base that starts calling for Mike Vrabel to take over for Kevin Stefanski. So from a football perspective, 10 out of 10 hire. I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't think you could bring a smarter, more well-respected, more well-versed, and different kind of guy into that coaching room than Mike Vrabel. From an off-the-field perspective, I have my questions. Earl, you were almost home. Yeah. You saw the news. I called you immediately, said we're going live. Thoughts on the Browns hiring
Well, first
Mike
things
Vrabel?
first, I was on I-90, jumped right off the freeway, turned around, and got back. First things first, Mike Vrabel, man, welcome home, right? I think this is a great hire, very unexpected, very a wow moment. But with Mike Vrabel, you get a damn good head coach in the building to add to the staff. Not exactly sure what his role will be. It says
he's just a consultant,
personnel consultant,
whatever that
quote
means.
unquote.
Yeah.
But you know, this is a dude who's from Northeast Ohio, grew up a Cleveland Browns fan, played his high school football here, his college football at Columbus. This is a dude who understands the situation at hand, right? And when you get somebody that's from here to be a part of this organization in any capacity, I think it brings an infusion of energy from a standpoint that you can relate to wanting to see the Cleveland Browns be successful. Now, on the flip side of that, I'm not going to lie, I did have the same toxic thought. I said, man, this dude might take Kevin's job. And that's just the reality, because most fans are going to think that when they see this hire that Kevin Stefanski, one, still has not been awarded a contract extension. And so now you look at a guy like Mike Vrabel with his persona coming into this organization. Of course, your natural thought is if all hell breaks loose, this is the successor to Kevin Stefanski. And that's not a damn good – that's a damn good plan B to have. You hope it don't get to that point.
Listen, you're talking about two guys who are considered top 10 coaches in the league.
Exactly.
There are a lot of people who think take location out. If you had your choice, Kevin Stefanski, Mike Vrabel, you're going to have some people who take Mike Vrabel and they're right, and you're going to have some people who take Kevin Stefanski and they're right. So
and it depends on style, right? Because
exactly.
This is a Clevelander. This is a dude who's tough. This is a dude who embodies hard work. He just comes with a different persona than what Kevin Stefanski does. And so I guess it's, pick your poison of who you would want. But not even trying to get down that road because I don't want to go there. The fact that dude is inside of this organization helps Kevin Stefanski. It helps Jim Schwartz. It helps the players. It helps everybody that's involved with this. It's always a good thing when you can add to your franchise, right? Whether it be on the coaching staff, in a front office, or on a football field.
Like I said, from a purely football perspective, you're bringing a top-tier elite, and I mean elite. He got the 1 seed in the AFC with Ryan Tannehill. We talk about Deshaun Watson having to play better. Well, Mike Vrabel's led a team to a 1 seed in a very difficult conference with mid-tier quarterback play. Now, he had a great defense, and he had Derrick Henry, so that helps negate mid-tier quarterback play. But Mike Vrabel is one of the smartest football dudes in the entire league. And even if it's not the football acumen, Earl, his ability to get men to play for him. You look at the end of last season, they could have laid down in Week 18, right? In a way, Mike Vrabel kind of screwed over the Browns, right? The Titans had to lose to the Jaguars. Jaguars are the 4 seed, excuse me. Browns play Jacksonville in the first round of the playoffs. What happens? A depleted, an injured, a beat down, we have nothing to play for. If we win, our draft pick goes to a worse position. Jackson has everything to play for. We don't give a shit. Excuse my language. Tennessee Titans team, led by Mike Vrabel, beat the living piss out of Jacksonville, allowed the Houston Texans to win the division, and we all know how the first round of the playoffs went. But one thing Mike Vrabel does, his teams never quit. They're well prepared. They fight their butts off. And even going back to their matchups against the Chiefs throughout the years, they've been outmatched top to bottom against Kansas City time after time after time. And I remember listening to Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. They were asked about who gives you the toughest test every time you play them. And they go, Tennessee, and it's not close. And the follow-up question was why. And Andy Reid's response was, nobody plays harder than the Titans do for Mike Vrabel. Nobody. So bringing that into the locker room, however he does it, who the hell knows what a consultant's role actually is, right? Is it going to be daily hands-on? Is this from afar? Who knows? But having that guy in your coaching room makes the Cleveland Browns a better team for 2024.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when you can add a great mind, a great person, and somebody that understands the Cleveland Browns to your organization in any capacity, it's a dub, right?
Yeah.
That's an easy layup. You want to do that. This is a dude I can remember back to the Hard Knocks days, right? I was watching the Houston Texans on Hard Knocks years ago, and this is when Cecil was there. And I believe at the time he was a linebackers coach under defensive coordinator Romeo Crennel. And he would be highlighted a lot. And you could just see the leadership. You talk about being a leader of men. You could see the coaching. You could see him putting, like, the holding people accountable.
He's a culture builder.
Right. You seen all of that on display just as a linebackers coach. And I remember when he, finally became a head coach, it was just like, good for him. We talked last season when we played Tennessee that we knew we outmatched the Titans on the football field. But I remember we said, well, if there's one X factor, who is it?
It's Vrabel.
It's Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
Right? So knowing that, and now he's here, a part of this organization, like I said, man, it makes everybody better.
I'm going back to that week, and I had forgot I knew they played, but I'd forgotten that matchup. We did a topic. We know the Browns are more talented, but because Mike Vrabel is a better coach than Kevin Stefanski. Now, this was previous to what we saw Kevin Stefanski do. Right. Because we all thought Vrabel was a better coach than Stefanski, could that be the evening out point, right? Now, fast forward, that was September, so 5-6 months, half a year essentially. They're in the same room together. Those two combined have 3 Coach of the Year awards since 2018. Think about that. So you got 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23. Half of the last 6 Coach of the Year awards are now in the Browns coaching room together.
And 2018 is when Jim Schwartz was the defensive coordinator, won the Super Bowl. So you got a Super Bowl ring in there. You got
since 2018.
Yeah, since 2018, you got somebody that's won a Super Bowl. You got coaches that's won Coach of the Year, and guys that's leader of men, and guys that actually know how to teach football. Mike Tomlin talk about that all the time. A lot of coaches don't want to coach. Well, you got guys now that actually love coaching. They love teaching. And so just like I said, I don't think any of us saw this coming at all. The last thing I seen before I walked out the door was the Browns create $10 million in salary cap room. The very next thing I see is the Cleveland Browns hire Mike Vrabel. Like, damn. Talk about making moves on a Friday. Like,
and
let's go.
G. Bush will be talking about this on the Ultimate Brown Show at 5 o'clock.
Absolutely.
And you want to pull up his tweet? But G. Bush fired off 2 tweets on the Vrabel situation. The first said, sneaky good move. I don't know if I call this sneaky, by the way. This is a big time. Ain't nothing sneaky about this.
Yeah.
And then he said, Stefanski is a collaborator. He ain't got no ego behind him. They got a great think tank going in Berea. I agree with all that. I don't disagree that he's a collaborator. I don't think there's any question about the room of coaches. It's just a matter of, could this create a distraction they didn't need? And is the upside of bringing Vrabel in worth the potential downside of said distraction? And I guess we'll see how they work together. But you talk about an elite offensive mind in Kevin Stefanski, who's a great leader of men. Mm-hmm. You talk about an elite defensive mind in Jim Schwartz. And then you talk about an elite motivator and culture builder. And they all have that too, by the way. I'm not saying one is just because I said it for one, don't mean it for other. A great culture builder and a guy who gets the absolute most out of everybody in Vrabel. And between a 3-headed coaching trio like that, and I just don't know enough about Ken Dorsey to figure out where he kind of fits into that pyramid or that puzzle. I'm not sure you could ask for a better 3-headed coaching attack than Vrabel, Schwartz, and Stefanski.
Yeah. If I was to put a positive spin on it, just to look at it from a different perspective, I don't think, though it has an opportunity to be a distraction, I don't think it's going to be a distraction at all. If you look at the Cleveland Browns organization, let's start with the front office. If you look at how Andrew Berry, over the course of his tenure here, has kind of built out his staff, and then you've seen these dudes grow in roles, get promotions, eventually move on, and get top jobs in other franchises, I think you're seeing that with Kevin Stefanski. You seen last year Kevin Stefanski started to revamp that coaching staff, right? You replaced coaches and you brought in guys that were clearly better than the dudes that was here before. Upgrades in Bubba Ventrone, upgrades in Jim Schwartz. I thought Stout Mitchell was a pretty good running backs coach, but you bring in a guy like Deuce Staley. Now you did lose Bill Callahan. Yeah. We don't know what we have.
Since they traded Bill Callahan for
right.
Vrabel.
We don't know what you have in this coach. But you see the constant revamping of the coaching staff now, right? And then you add Mike Vrabel here. We don't know why Mike Vrabel didn't take a head coaching job in the NFL or on the college level. Right, he wasn't
offered, yeah.
And we don't know what the circumstances may be. We don't know if he even wanted to coach on that level. We do know that he's from Northeast Ohio. We do know he grew up a Cleveland Browns fan. And so this might be an opportunity for him to do something that's sentimental to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so if that's the case, he's only going to pour into Kevin Stefanski. Me, you, and Anthony talk all the time about iron sharpening iron, as one person better than another. And we do that here in this studio. We try to make each other better. So instead of looking at this as a potential distraction, I'm going to make the choice right now to look at this. Mike Vrabel is here to only help Kevin Stefanski be better at his job. He's here to help Ken Dorsey be better at his. He's here to help Jim Schwartz be better at his. He's a very well-respected man throughout the NFL, and I think when you get that dude in here, he garnishes his attention, and I think he's only going to help the situation at hand.
Two things. One, we talk about competition on the field, right? You bring in all these defensive tackles to weed out the ones who are going to play, the ones who aren't ready, right? You bring in all these defensive ends who can play, who's ready. We have options. We never really talk about competition within a coaching staff. But you talk about iron sharpening iron. You have a clash of the Titans up top, and I mean a clash in a good way, right? Hey, Jim Schwartz wants to ask Mike Vrabel a question. If you were scheming this, what would you do in this? I was going to do it this way. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. You have a great mind to bounce things off of. From Vrabel's standpoint, defensive guy, right?
Yeah.
He has a chance now to learn from Kevin Stefanski, one of the better offensive minds in football, from a consultant position to take with him to wherever he goes next, whether it's a long-term position in Cleveland or anywhere else in the league. He has a chance to learn from Ken Dorsey.
Or down 77.
Or wherever it is. But he has a chance to now not be in charge of an entire football team, learn the other side of the football that he's not an expert in already a little bit more, take whatever he learns from Stefanski, Dorsey, Tommy Rees, Deuce Staley, whoever it is on that offensive staff, with him to whoever his next job is.
Yeah.
As far as the distraction goes, I assume, and sometimes you can make an ass out of you and me assuming, I assume Kevin Stefanski has signed off on this. Right?
Absolutely.
I would assume that this was all ran by Kevin Stefanski. He was okay with it. He was cool with it. If it turns out it wasn't run by Kevin Stefanski, then my red flag goes up as there's maybe a bigger issue at hand. But I would assume that this had to have been run by him.
Let's say hypothetically it wasn't. I still don't think it's a problem. Because I feel the same way about this that I would have if Joe Flacco would have came back. A lot of people didn't want Joe Flacco back because they thought it would serve as a distraction to Deshaun Watson. But I've been of the mindset you do what's best for the Cleveland Browns, not what's best for Deshaun Watson. And to me, hypothetically, if Kevin Stefanski didn't have the say in this, let's say this was an Andrew Berry thing, right? And he made that call. Okay, well, you're doing what's best for the Browns, regardless of what Kevin might do.
But I mean, there is always the like we just saw, and I think we could all agree now with how this all played out. The Browns made a conscious effort not to bring back Joe Flacco because of on-the-field stuff first, Jameis Winston being a better fit, but the potential downfall of whatever could have been a distraction with Joe Flacco. The potential, and I use potential.
You know he's not gonna say that. Like if Andrew Berry's ever asked that question,
he's never gonna
be the first part.
Yeah, which is why I think
he's finna turn 40. I wasn't finna sign 40.
And I agree. I think the on-field part is a more important component to it than the potential distraction.
You're right. I'm just saying that's the excuse to it.
Yeah. But I think we could all agree there was a potential for that. I'm not saying there's going to be an issue. I'm just saying if the Browns start the season 1-3, right? We don't know how their schedule comes out. It's a gauntlet. G talked about last year. First 4 games. Steve Becker just asked, we're able to jump on Zoom. Steve, we're live on air right now, brother. Come on. Tune in.
Bad job out of you, Steve.
Yeah, bad job out of you, Steve. I'm saying there's a potential if the Browns start the season poorly to then have questions arise of, well, maybe he'd do a better job. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not saying it should be the case. I'm just saying we understand how this fan base works. We understand how any of these situations
it's not just
work.
Going to be the fans,
Not
though.
Just in Cleveland. There's players in the locker room.
No, it's not going to be that. Unfortunately, let's be real. It's going to be brethren in the Cleveland media that's going to look at this situation if Kevin Stefanski gets off to a slow start. And there's a story there to be created that's going to, garnish our attention.
A potential for
But
distraction.
I just, he here to help.
I agree.
I don't think he's here to take nobody's job. I don't think he's here to be toxic. We've seen that before. I can remember when Todd Haley was hired as Hugh Jackson's offensive coordinator.
How'd that go?
The dude had an agenda.
Yeah.
Right or wrong.
No,
he did.
He had an
100%,
agenda. 100%.
And I don't view this as that. Mike Vrabel was not that type of dude. Like
I said, it's definitely. I'm gonna cut you off real quick, but it's definitely not an agenda.
For sure. Like this right here, it just feels like what? This is an opportunity for me to work for an organization that I grew up cheering for, to be close to their home, to learn some things like you said that I might not have known, to put another feather in my cap. and whatever happens next year, the year from that, and I take from this and I move forward, you know what? Let's see if it works or not. But this is great all the way around the board. A solid football mind, somebody that knows the history of the Cleveland Browns, somebody that wants to see this city and this team win a Super Bowl, and that's willing to contribute to doing so. Like, that's a win-win across the board for everybody that's involved.
So to give you a little example, I'm going to read you the last 5 comments on the YouTube chat right now. Ready?
Okay.
Love the Vrabel hire. Next chat. He's taking Kevin's job. Next chat. Vrabel's a good coach, no doubt. Next chat. If Kevin has a bad year, our new head coach is already in the building. So, like that's what I'm saying. There could be. From a football standpoint, though, it's a freaking home run hire, man.
Absolutely.
Like an absolute home run hire.
Absolutely.
You're literally bringing in, if we were ranking head coaches, take teams off the equation, right? Top 5 coaches in football. Andy Reid's a lock. There's no more Belichick, so I think Reid's a surefire lock. Tomlin's probably in that. I know it, but
It's a toss-up 2 and 3 between Tomlin and Harbaugh.
Harbaugh. Okay, so those 3, we could agree locks.
Right.
I think that next group is like, in some order, Vrabel, Stefanski. Actually, McVay's 4. I'll put McVay 4. And then that 5, 6, 7. Like Vrabel, Stefanski.
Because we're going off of who's had a long enough tenure.
Yeah, well, I mean, like John,
right?
like Harbaugh's back with the Chargers, but I'm not ready to put him in that conversation. He has to prove it in the NFL again. Like, is that 5 and 6? Like, can we really have 2 of the top 6 coaches in football in the same room right now?
It can be
like,
argued.
is that a crazy thing to just even
No, I don't think that's crazy at all. And I think, like, you know, if you just look at the combined staff, you know, up until last year, nobody had an issue with Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey was actually doing very well in Buffalo. We know what Jim Schwartz's track record is. We know what Bubba Ventrone's special teams units looked like in Indianapolis before he got here.
Crushed it.
Right? We've seen Kevin Stefanski grow and develop as a head coach. Don't really know that much about Deuce Staley, the running backs coach, but, you know, you just add him to the mix of the guys that we just talked about.
He had other offers outside of Cleveland and decided to come to Cleveland. So
Well,
that says something about how much he was valued across the league.
Yeah, and so, like, there's another, I keep going back, another great mind inside the organization. And now you're starting to see this thing on all 3 levels.
Yeah.
The front office, the coaching staff, the roster. The culture has changed. The way that this franchise go about business has changed, and they're doing everything. G talk about Operation Stockpile. You're stockpiling front office, coaching staff, and roster, and this is good for everybody that's involved.
This is like Thanos acquiring the Infinity Stones. Like, 1-time coach of the year, not enough.
Yeah.
2-time coach of the year, not enough. Let's get a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator. Let's get the coordinator of the best rated special teams unit in football for 2 of the last 3 years. And you know what we're going to add to that, Earl? We may have lost Bill Callahan. We lose 1 Infinity Stone. Let's get a guy that people regard as a top 5 offensive line coach in his replacement in Andy Dickerson. So, at the end of the day, man, I like this move a lot.
I do too.
A lot.
I do too.
And I think whether this is I'm calling it a stepping stone, but it's not like he hasn't already been to the top. Mm-hmm. But for Vrabel, an opportunity to improve to learn something from an offensive genius like Stefanski, to work and improve the defensive unit they already had in place and the defensive structure they had in place, to get a chance to collaborate and corroborate with Kevin Stefanski, to get the most out of Deshaun Watson. Hell, we even look at it from this perspective. If Mike Vrabel can unlock something in Deshaun Watson that Kevin hadn't been able to yet for whatever reason, I don't care what the hell else he does. It's a win on that point. And you look at all the players who have come out in Vrabel's defense since he was fired as, I've never wanted to play harder. Mm-hmm. This dude connected with me. He's a former player. He gets us. I think that might be his biggest asset as a head coach. If that resonates with Deshaun, 2024 is going to be a hell of a ride for us.
So I'll say this, because I like that angle. You know, he can be here and he can learn from everybody that's here. But the reality is, he's here to be a teacher. See, Mike Vrabel is a 3-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots, and and somebody that had a significant impact on all 3 of those Super Bowls, not just on the defensive side of the ball, but on the offensive side of the ball as well. This is a dude that played for a championship organization his entire career.
Yeah.
He comes in here with championship pedigree as a player, right? And we talk all the time about these former players turning into coaches. There's none better than a dude who's won Super Bowls for a championship organization and being able to bring all that knowledge and give it back to the coaching staff that's present and give it back to the players on the field that's going to be here. You got a champion in the building, somebody that's done it more than once and has had a significant impact, right? And so when you think about it from that level, we can talk all day long what he is here to learn before he moves on. But to me, it's about what he's here to teach.
Absolutely. And I just got a chuckle out of this. The Browns technically don't have a tight end, too, right now.
Don't start.
You thinking what I'm thinking, Earl?
Don't start.
You gonna bring back Vrabel
out of retirement. Retirement.
Hey, I think he does have 2 Super Bowl touchdown catches, though.
Yeah.
If my memory, I know he caught one for sure. I think he has 2 touchdowns.
Dude got plenty of touchdowns in his career.
I think he has 10 in his career, but I think 2 in the Super Bowl.
It's just, when you think about it from that aspect, man, he's won Super Bowls. He know what it's like to play at the highest level. He know what it takes to grind out through a season to go win a Super Bowl. And no, he hasn't reached that pinnacle as a coach, but when you're a player and you've played that long and you had that much of an impact and you want to come home and give your team that free game, give your hometown team, look, here go this free game, boom, boom, boom. This is how we finna do this. Let's go win a damn Super Bowl. I love it.
Yeah. And you look at, you have Stefanski, you have Schwartz, you have Vrabel, and Dorsey, your big 4, right?
Right.
Dorsey, a player, obviously played high level. Juwan Howard just got fired, by the way, if anyone cares about Michigan basketball. Officially fired. So you have Dorsey, who played at a high level. Vrabel, who won a Super Bowl. Stefanski played in college. Schwartz won a Super Bowl with the Eagles as a head coach. How much more high-level experience that can relate to both the player side of it and the coaching side of it can you find from a head coach, his 2 coordinators, and whatever Vrabel's position is across the league than that? It may exist. I don't know the specifics of each coaching staff, but when you're looking at all the traits you want to add in here, right? You have Stefanski, the level-headed player. He's a player everyone we talked to, D'Anthony Bell, when he was here, told us straight up, like, we love playing for Stefanski. Level-headed dude. Dorsey, TBD, but we've all seen that video.
I think Dorsey and Schwartz.
All seen that video.
Dorsey, Schwartz, and Vrabel all got the same type of.
The yin and yang to Stefanski.
Yeah, they got the all same type of like mentality and attitude. Like, you know, Bale sat right here and told us, man, Schwartz don't take no shit from nobody.
No, it was, when he said that, that was nice.
You know, that GIF of Ken Dorsey is like one of my favorite things to use.
Well, it just applies to everything. You can use it to anything. Yeah, so, you get frustrated.
And then you got a good dude, like I said, Vrabel. He holds people accountable. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you command your respect, not demand it. He commands his respect, right?
Yeah.
And you got to respect an OG like that being in your building.
And you look at the linebacker core they have. And do you know who the linebackers coach right now is for the Browns?
I don't.
The specific.
I don't.
And can you try to look who's the specific linebackers coach? Whether Vrabel, however the consultant role plans out, Earl, if he's simply just helping the linebackers. We saw what JOK did last year in the first year with Jim Schwartz. You had Mike Vrabel's expertise. We're going from Pro Bowl to All-Pro, right? You bring in Jordan Hicks, a veteran who's played for Jim Schwartz forever. He knows that system inside and out. Add a little 2 things from Vrabel, add a little communication, talking, a little pointer here or there. He goes from a guy who's been a 100-tackler player for the last 4 or 5 years to a guy who could be, assuming age doesn't deteriorate his ability, another guy right in the Pro Bowl conversation. They just signed Devin Bush. Who better to get the most out of a guy who they just signed on a 1-year deal, who's looking to rejuvenate his career and turn into the player that the Steelers thought he could be in the first round, than a guy like Mike Vrabel, who he already knows gets the most out of his players and knows the position inside and out. Like, you just look at that room, plus you have Diabate and Tony Fields and maybe the guy they draft. Like, there's a lot of young, untapped potential in that room. Mm-hmm. Hicks older, the other 4 guys, all clearly. Jason Tarver is their linebacker coach. I apologize, Jason. I'm unfamiliar with your game. I'm just assuming with Mike Vrabel they can also add another element to that. It is, from a football perspective, an absolute grand slam. I see no downside from the football perspective. And if you tell me Devin Bush, JOK, Hicks, Diabate, and Fields are going to take a 5% increase from their play last year to next season, because of Vrabel on top of the other progressments they'll make, there's not a weak spot in this Browns defense. From a coaching perspective or a player perspective.
Yeah, I just would like, to me, I think it's great on the field and off the field. Like, you know, I've said this before. Jim Brown is famous for saying, in order to achieve the ultimate goal, you need all 11 parts moving in the same direction. And I think it goes a little bit deeper than the players on the football field. In order to obtain the ultimate goal, you need the entire organization moving in the same direction. So I don't see any potential distractions, if I'm being totally honest with you. I think everybody inside that building has a common goal. Get the Cleveland Browns to the Super Bowl and win it. You know, damn everything else, right? We're not going to be doing we're not going to be doing all of that, right? We're not going to worry about any of that. Everybody is here to help each other. Everybody is here to obtain, like, you know, the same goal. And if we can reach that goal without ego getting in the way, without distractions getting in the way, then that's better for everybody. And I just believe in my heart, this can be just me being a homer, but I believe in my heart, man, like, everybody here with no hidden agendas at all.
We have a super chat from Brett Watson who says, Stefanski hasn't been extended. This is Haslam's break glass in case of emergency. So that is, like I said, potential.
I'm not knocking nobody for their perspective. Again, we know that, listen, that's going to, man, that if the Browns.
They can say the same with Jim Schwartz.
If the Browns, for whatever reason, go on a 3-game losing streak and it's ugly, that conversation is going to come up. And so I'm not going to psych myself into believe that won't be potential talk this fall. I'm just not I'm not going down that road. I'm not. Like, it could be, it can't be. I respect anybody's opinion and their perspective on it. If it is like break glass emergency situation,
that's a damn
good break glass emergency situation, and I'm not mad at it. Yeah. So,
and what do you think?
I think Stefanski is on a hotter seat than we realized, but that's just my perspective. I don't have a high thought behind Jimmy Haslam, so I feel like this is definitely his break glass.
From a football perspective, though, any downside to this whatsoever?
Yeah, you take him every time. This is fantastic. You have some of the best football minds, like you guys have been saying this whole time, in Berea now for this team. And if you're going to go all in this year, which is what it's looking like for everything, why not? Like, I understand the move. It's just Kevin might be on the hot seat more than we thought.
Well, he doesn't have an extension yet. It is what it is. Neither does AB. We talked on the show today about the Zadarius Smith signing, right? Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that once we saw the cap numbers, they had that big cap hit in 2026 when that contract's over. We said it last year, honestly, and we were a little premature on that. But this year, we all agree. It's kind of, this is the year it has to work, right? Mm-hmm. For Deshaun, for everybody, the whole team. This is their best chance. The roster's going to be loaded. Miles still in his prime. He's still a Batonio, like all the guys are loaded. This might be Jimmy, whether or not it's break glass in case of emergency or not, which I don't think. I love Stefanski. I think he's a great head coach. I think to move on with him would be silly. But this could just be Haslam saying, screw it. This is, or AB or Haslam, whatever, but Haslam because he's on top. It's all or nothing this year. I want if I could bring Bill Belichick in as a consultant too, screw it. Like, let's bring as many smart football minds into the room as humanly possible to give the Browns the best chance to win a Super Bowl in 2024 as possible. Yeah. And whether that's just Stefanski by himself, whether that's Stefanski and Vrabel, whether it's Stefanski, Vrabel, hell, let's sign Nick Saban. I'm not joking. Like, if this is the approach, I'm fine with it. Bring in Saban. Bring in Pete Carroll. Bring in Belichick. Let's get as many football geniuses in that room as possible, right? Because you can have as many coaches and consultants as you want. There's no salary cap on that.
So we've been saying for a couple of years, either 2023 or 2024, it's kind of like a make or break season. And the more that I think about it, I don't know if I agree with that anymore. I try to listen and read between the lines when some of these head people talk. You know, Andrew Berry has always said his goal is to build the Cleveland Browns to be a consistent winner, a team that can consistently compete for the playoffs, AFC championships, and Super Bowls. He talked about a month and a half ago about the whole plan around Deshaun Watson being a 7, 8, 9, 10-year plan. We look at businesses, that's smart businesses, teams, that's smart teams. Even when you have a good business, a good roster, a good show, you always go back and evaluate and see how you can make it better, even if the product is already good. And so instead of looking at it like, the Browns are going all in on 2024, the Browns could be looking at it like we just had a surprisingly damn good 2023. Now let's assess 2023 and see what we can add in every facet of this organization to make it better going forward, to help it be sustained for the upcoming years. And so, like, I think it has immediate and long-term impact.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, but I also know Nick Chubb's getting older, Myles Garrett's getting older, Bitonio's getting older, Teller's getting older, Cooper's getting older. You know, you try to project 2 years down the road.
Right.
Most of those players aren't going to be
But you know what,
here.
though? That's why you set yourself up to retool, because if you think about, yeah, those guys are getting older, but most of the dudes who's considered the core outside of Chubb, I mean, they're in there. Myles Garrett is in the prime of his career. You see what I'm saying? Like, Myles Garrett probably got another good 5 solid years of football.
I don't know about that. He's 28.
He's 28 years old, but Myles Garrett
Aaron Donald just retired at 32.
that was by choice. That was by choice, not because
I mean, he was great last year,
he
but
can still play. Like, Denzel Ward is still, you know, in his prime. You got young guys coming up like Martin Emerson Jr. You just drafted the dude Cam Mitchell out of Northwestern, who seems to be a baller. He's not hit on every draft pick. Every signing has not turned out to be great. But if you just look at the overall roster, right, a lot of this team is not that old in average age. And I think that even with the expiring contracts, you can still retool and still be good year in and year out. The bottom line is, got to make sure our quarterback is great.
that is the bottom line no matter what. And I don't disagree with the premise. I'm just saying in 2 years, that means you have to draft guys who are better than Teller, Bitonio, Chubb, Cooper, and there's probably other guys I'm not thinking of. Tomlinson will be gone by that point. Zadarius Smith. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of guys who are very, very, very good football players now that you could hit on some studs in the draft. Don't get me wrong. They could sign free. They'll have a lot of cap space to work with. But I'm just saying, right now, you have the guys who you know are really good.
Yeah.
So that's why I think at this point, it's not if they don't win this year, they have no chance. I'm saying this is your prime window because your best players are still healthy and playing at a level that could compete for a Super Bowl. And if that means let's bring in every smart defensive and offensive mind into the coaching room as consultants, as analysts, call them scouts. I don't care what you call them.
Yeah.
Call them Kevin Stefanski's best friend. I don't give a shit what the
I
title
just know
is.
not
Bring them all in. Let's
it's
do
not
what we
just
can.
us. I think overall, fans, media included, I think we get caught up like too much on when a player turns 28, 29, 30, 31, instead of looking at, is this player still productive? We worry too much about age, like 28, 29, 30, 31 is old. And I get it, your body get beat up when you play in the NFL, but you're not an old man. Like, you can't, it's not like you're a statue and you can't move. Instead of looking at somebody's age, look and see if they're productive. Khalil Mack is well over 30-something years old.
But those are the exceptions, though.
Yeah, but I just think that we get caught up too much on how old a guy is versus how productive a guy is.
Fair.
You know what I mean? Like,
Fair. I mean, I think like there are exceptions. Khalil Mack's a great one. Hell, Keenan Allen. Somehow the Chargers had two guys last year who are way past their football prime.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Keenan Allen's stats this morning. He had like 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns in 13 games last year. Khalil Mack had, 16 and a half sacks?
Yeah.
I mean, there are exceptions, but I also think it's a dangerous game to play to just assume a guy's not going to break down because the history of the sport.
I don't think
there's
you should
a threshold.
assume at all. I think that's why these GMs, the good ones, they do their due diligence. That's why they have a plan A through Z. I think that you are right. You know, age at some point can become an issue, but productivity versus chronological age should always be, you know, the deciding factor or on do we keep this player or do we move
It shouldn't be.
from
It shouldn't
this
be the
player?
only thing. I
You
agree.
know, so
I
like
agree.
if you get the right guys at the right time, you know, whether it be level 1, level 2, or level 3, and hopefully you could develop players that are at level 2 and level 3, then you'll be good to go. You know, overall, the Browns are a very, very damn good football organization, and we've seen the turn of the tide, like literally over the last 5 or 6 years.
The roster's loaded right now. Like,
Not just their
top to
roster,
bottom, their
it's
roster's
just
loaded.
like, man, and I know a lot of the fans in the chat is watching this, like, man, I've been watching the Browns for a long time.
35
The culture
years?
was always toxic. Like, you never seen the Browns being proactive. The Browns used to always be an organization that was reactive.
Yeah.
We were always the organization that was at the top of the draft looking for the home run to change the franchise, or, coming to free agency looking for that 1 or 2 big name signing to just come in and change the franchise. Like, it's been a slow process, but the process is paying off. And so I'm comfortable saying, like, even with the issues that we have, this is a damn good franchise right now.
Yeah, front office is loaded. The roster top to – I'm telling you, we looked at the whole roster this morning, and we'll wrap up in 1 second back to Vrabel, but we looked at the roster top to bottom. They have room for like 2 or 3 draft picks, Earl, without having to cut ties with someone we probably like. You know what I mean? Like, they've done such a good job acquiring talent, whether it's via trade, free agency, the draft the last few years. This team doesn't have a ton of holes. Like, it really doesn't, and that's a testament to Andrew Berry and the rest of that front office for putting together a hell of a roster. And we'll wrap with this, because this is about Mike Vrabel, who's a consultant.
Real quick, though, when I talk about, like, the culture changing, I think it happened before that. Like, Andrew Berry gets a lot of credit, but
He was the Dorsey regime?
He also inherited a lot of talent from John Dorsey.
Garrett.
You know, he was able to identify Wyatt Teller. Wyatt Teller was in Buffalo as a backup.
5th-round pick for him.
Yeah, like, he wasn't even nobody that
If the Browns
was
trade a
on
5th-round
anybody's
pick
radar.
for somebody, it's going to turn out well.
So
they've
like,
hit all those.
You just look at what he inherited and what he was able to learn on his own before he got here, and it was almost like everything aligned perfectly.
And one more thing on culture, because I forgot about this on the show. Jordan Hicks spoke to the media yesterday for the first time. He asked why Cleveland. And he goes, look at the veterans in here, look at the coaches. This is a team that's ready to win a championship right now. I wanted to be part of that. When's the last time you heard a free agent the Cleveland Browns signed say that in particular? They had the foundation in place of a championship. I just wanted to be that last piece.
Man, we co-work and we are friends with a guy that played in the NFL just not too long ago all the time. And Tyvis has spoken to, you know, being in the league and being around guys to where, you know, Cleveland was not somewhere that you went as a free agent destination. And even when you was traded there, you damn sure didn't feel good about your career going forward. That's not the case anymore. People want to come be a part of what's going on here. Like, despite the quote-unquote struggles from Deshaun Watson, et cetera, they're able to look even past that and see that, okay, this entire organization as a whole, man, I can work with that.
Yeah.
This might be one of my best chances to go get a ring. You got players choosing us over teams like Kansas City.
Yeah.
Like, that says something.
Legit.
That
And that's a
says
team that
something.
just won 2 Super Bowls.
Exactly.
So if you're going to take a similar contract to come to a contender, not the champion.
Now, granted,
it
I'm
says
not
something.
signifying, like, Hicks' situation because they're loaded at linebacker over there.
Yeah,
I'm
but just
saying,
in general.
In
Yeah,
general,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
when people speak that highly of the Cleveland Browns in 2024, and I know for a fact just 10 years ago that was not the case, that's a damn good turnaround.
Yeah. And last thoughts on Vrabel before we wrap up?
Yeah, I want to clarify my comments before. I'll be happy if Kevin stays and gets his extension and everything, but the fact that he doesn't have it and they brought in Vrabel, that's my, hey, if anything goes bad, you know, it's going to happen. But I'm excited. I think it's a great hire, and I look forward to this Browns season. I hope Stefanski stays around, and I hope we put it all together this year.
Earl, final
Man,
thoughts.
like, for me, final thoughts, Mike Vrabel, welcome home, man. Like, bring that championship pedigree, bring that championship experience to Cleveland. Help the players, help the coaching staff, help the front office, man, and help contribute to this city and this franchise accomplishing the long-awaited goal that we all want, a Super Bowl. So thanks for choosing the Browns.
My final thought, I think it's a brilliant football move. Kevin Stefanski should not be on the hot seat, but he also doesn't have an extension, which makes me think something might be fishy. If he had an extension, I love this move in all facets. Because he doesn't, I'm just worried it could lead to something that it shouldn't become down the road. We'll break this down more in depth on Monday on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show when we have Bull, Tyvis, and Bull G and Tyvis in to discuss. We appreciate y'all tuning in to a little breaking news with us, and we'll see y'all Monday. Peace.